stepped on the brakes, and while I was driving, the floor pan went down, and I went with it. Pretty cool.
Still jamming out to the music.
Just Google offensive T-shirts. There you go.
I was a skinny little punk kid that wasn't having too much luck with the ladies. So.
We need to drink now, you guys.
We had grown up watching Luis Santiago. How can we not? How can we not want to be on TV? How are you talking about?
I'm still jamming out to the music.
I am not going to ask about the hat.
We're already in the dumpster. We're what, 4 minutes in?
I think it was a 93 Toyota Corolla. Back when that was my first car when I was 14 years old. I didn't even have a license.
Really?
No lie, maybe 6 months later, I had the whole suspension, motor.
What's your worst TV experience doing Garage Cut?
Do you want me to just come back next week and do another podcast? We ain't got time.
The Puerto Rican guy with a 68 Charger, come on.
I'm just saying. Awesome.
If you've never heard of LaGrange, ZZ Top did a song about LaGrange. So
that's the reason why I know it.
That's right.
I'm not going to worry about it. I know it's in Texas.
So,
When you pull into town, the sign says they got a lot of nice girls.
Still jamming out to the music. Hey everybody, Luis Santiago. Tonight we have a different show for you guys, but I highly recommend that you stay and watch it. We might talk about cars, we might not. We're going to be talking with James Holland. James Holland runs an outfit called Set Apart Farms, and he's helping vets. And I mean he's helping vets in a big way. I had read somewhere that the numbers that they were going with, it was something like 17% of vets that were over there in Afghanistan and Iraq were committing suicide. And then something else came out a few weeks ago saying that they grossly underestimated that number, that it could be as high as 40%. So you guys got to realize freedom isn't free. It's really not. And it ain't like the song, it cost $1.05. It ain't. Freedom is serious business. And if we want to keep what we have, I highly recommend you listen to what James has got to say about what he's doing, because he's doing his part to help guys out that really need it. So we're going to bring in John here in a little bit, and we're going to chit-chat, and then we're bringing in James Holland. Hit it, Ken!
Ever wonder what happened to your favorite Hollywood stars? Some are screen legends. Some made history.
What do you say? Is it the new Bluesmobile or what?
One thing's for sure, they all have more to tell. Road trip with me, Luis Santiago, as I hunt down these iconic cars.
The car's actually stolen. My kids said, Dad, you're not going to believe what's over here.
And take you behind the scenes to get the story behind the story.
I'm going to have the car do the same thing. Pow, bang, wow.
From the designers who built them, the stars that drove them, and the lucky motherfuckers who stumbled across them. Where was his car when you found it? Pull in there. Pull in there. Dude, tell me you have your hands on it. You're not going to believe some of this stuff.
Dude!
Yo.
What is up, man?
Long day.
You didn't do nothing.
No, I actually was with my brother-in-law and my sister in the hospital all day. He had a hip replacement. I was there early in Philadelphia at University of Penn. Just got home about an hour and a half ago, walked in the door, flicked on the lights, grabbed the outline, hit the ground running. First, I wanted to back up before we get into James. And you're right, this is a totally different animal tonight. And one thing that I wanted to say too is the fact that not only is there a price, but these guys, after they're in the military, and you know this, you two guys are military guys, I'm not. There's a price to pay that continues to go on. It just doesn't stop when you get out of the service.
Right.
You still have issues all the way down the line. So it isn't like, hey, I'm good, I'm back to civilian life and flick the switch back on. So we're going to get into a little bit of that. But this is a totally different animal. It's the holidays. People should appreciate what they have, and not just, oh, this holiday here, it's 4th of July, it's, Memorial. People need to, think about this a little more often, especially what's going on. But I wanted to stop syntheticadvantage.com with Nick. When I was talking, because he's one of our sponsors, and there's his website there if you ever want to check him out. But when I was talking to Nick about 2 weeks ago, we were talking about this. We were trying to have his video ready for tonight, but we didn't. But Nick mentioned that if you're a small shop, big shop, small shop, no matter how big or small, but if you do specialty work, let's say you build bikes, you build cars for people, you want to step it up and put something a little better into your build. You want to upsell the person and go, we got bulk, we got bottle, we got AMSOIL. But you can call Nick. He'll set you up, walk you through it. If you want to be an independent dealer under him, talk to him. If you need 55 gallons, we'll give it to you. If you need 5 gallons, we'll get it to you. But get a hold of Nick. So I just think, when we talk about these cars, some of these people got $400,000 or $500,000 in their cars. So when you're done, do you put bottled oil from Pep Boys in it? Come on.
Yeah.
Make sure it's right. That's why it's a perfect match for us as far as AMSOIL Nick. But Nick's a good dude.
Cool.
So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I get it.
Yes, with James, I was on the phone with James, like I was telling you, probably 4 or 5 months back. We were supposed to have him on before the summer break, but we double booked people like sometimes we do. So we have him on now. Actually, we were supposed to have our last show 2 weeks ago, but right before Thanksgiving, but we booked this one and Ray for next week, December 7th.
Ray Effingham is next week. Yeah.
So that's it. I'm delirious, so I'm running my mouth. I'm drinking Pepsi so that I could have a little bit of juice.
God.
What do you know?
Well, in hell. Let's bring James in. I mean, from his thumbnail, he's a crayon eater, so I mean, he's got something good to say at least. And we'll go from there. What do you say?
Bring him out.
James,
he can take a joke.
The crayon eating thing, that was like before my time.
Oh, okay.
They started eating crayons right after I got out, I think.
Got you. Yeah. My nephew just got out of the Corps.
Okay.
Yeah, he got.
I got my son. I have a son in right now. He just deployed actually November 8th. He left with the 13th MEU out of San Diego.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. I did 5 years at Beachmasters.
Okay.
Working with the MEU.
Yeah. Good time. So you know the pains then.
Yes, I do. Yes. I'm a CB. I was a construction mechanic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you you were in San Diego?
Yeah, I was in Coronado for my first tour. Got out, went to Newfoundland after that, and went back in, went to Newfoundland. Then I went to NMCB1 out of Gulfport, Mississippi. Then from there, I went to Spec War Group staff, where I supported all the SEAL teams. And then from Spec War Group staff, I went to SEAL Team 8 and did support for them.
Okay. So you started at Coronado. Wow, what a horrible place.
I know, right? Well, and you know what? It's funny because I tell people all the time, because I grew up in New York City, and then we moved out to Long Island, and I tell people all the time, I went to San Diego in '81, and I realized, screw New York, I don't want to go back. I couldn't. It blew me away how nice people were. You know what I mean? It's just so bizarre to me because you don't get that in New York. So,
no. Well, in San Diego. San Diego's kind of a little, people don't realize this, but it's like a nice little conservative pocket there in California. It's not anything like LA at all. There's some really awesome people there. Not to say there's not awesome people in LA, but San Diego was surprising to me as well. And And I had spent some time down in Coronado. I went to, I was a Chief Scout swimmer, so I went to Scout Swimmer School quite a bit there in Coronado.
Yeah. How long were you in?
Say that once more.
How long were you in?
A little over 12 years. I went in 2000, and then I got out in 2012.
Got you.
Yeah. Man. So I had I got blown up quite a bit at times. So I tell people all the time, I have the brain of an NFL quarterback. Just unfortunately, I don't have the bank account. So
yeah, understand.
James, before we get rolling, give everybody the 30-second, 40 seconds of Set Apart Farms and what the mission is.
Sure. So what we're doing, we're taking a different approach, a more holistic approach to healing veterans. The norm right now is you have a veteran that has an issue. We take them out and put them into a program, right? So what we do is we separate the unit, we separate the family. We take this veteran, maybe a 35-day program, 60-day program. We give them all these coping skills, communication skills. We give them all these tools. And then we say, now go home and make it work. Well, 9.5 times out of 10, it doesn't work. And it's because you left out half the ingredient. You're giving all these skills to the one person, but not the spouse. They don't know where they're coming from. Yeah. And so we saw that was a huge gap. Imagine if the military trained that way, where we take fire team leaders and squad leaders, platoon leaders away from everybody, give them all the skills and say, now go make it work. Yeah. It wouldn't happen. We train as a unit, as one, so everybody has an idea and knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. That's the same approach we're going to take to healing veterans, is we're going to incorporate the entire family and quit leaving out half the ingredient. The issues that we're tackling with veterans, it's not a veteran issue, really. It's an American issue. Yeah. Right? We have in America, the family unit's been watered down drastically.
Oh, yeah.
And we're seeing results of that, right? We're seeing what that's turning into. And so it just so happens that for us, we've been tasked with trying to bring this gap, close these gaps with the veteran community so that we can show, set the example with others, that we have to reunite these families, rebuild these family foundations. And we think that's the real big missing key, the big missing part to healing these veterans. There's a lot of great organizations that are out there, but we're still seeing the same results right now that we saw 10 years ago, or that we saw 15 years ago, even with suicides. We're not really chipping away at it too good. And so what it seems to us is there's a lot of Band-Aids on puncture wounds, and you can't put a Band-Aid on a puncture wound. That's just temporary. Right. We got to get surgical with it. And we really need to take the time to really break that unit down and rebuild that family up. So with our program, when a family comes in on our program, we're looking at 6 to 9 months is how long they're going to go through our program. So it's not a 3-day retreat or a 5-day retreat at a ranch where they have a great time, but at the end of that week, they're right back in the same reality that qualified them to go there in the first place. We never really fixed anything. And that's what I mean by Band-Aid on a puncture wound, is we're just temporarily trying to plug these little things, but it's not really fixing the issue. And so what we see, and the big gap, is leaving the family out. And a lot of people don't realize either that a lot of these caregivers, the family, the spouse is the caregiver, and these children, they're not getting they don't rate these same benefits. So if a veteran, can go to the VA, which, by the way, a lot of veterans, at least here in Texas, haven't even been able to go to the VA in 2 years because of the mask mandate stuff. But let's say they're able to go to the VA to get something taken care of. Well, the spouse, if they want to go, they're going to have to go pay full price, right? They want to go to dental, they're going to pay out of pocket. Same with the kids. So what our program is going to do is we don't just, deal with the veterans' issues. It's the family's issues, right? Because it all bleeds over. And so we're going to deal with the whole family. It's a holistic approach. The veteran gets the services, the spouse gets the services, the children get the services. They get independent services, they get independent therapies, and then they also get it as a group. We think that's the important part, And if you think about society, and you think about some of these families, not just veterans, but if a husband and spouse or a husband and wife get into an argument, they get into a fight, the kids hear it or the kids see it. What generally happens is the kids either they go to bed that night or they leave and they go to school, and they never get to see the makeup process. They just saw mom and dad mad at each other, and now we're all sitting around the dinner table and everybody's getting along just fine. See, it kind of gives somewhat of a perverse reality to a relationship, right? Yeah. Of what's supposed to happen, what takes place. You leave out the big important part. They didn't ever see the makeup, which obviously their kids can't see every makeup session that the that the wife and husband have, but they do need to see that there was a makeup, right? That there was a communication about what had happened and an agreement that they came to. With our program, we don't have any secret magic thing. We can't say any, spell over you and you're never going to argue with your spouse again. That's unrealistic. But what we can do is give you the tools to argue in a healthy way, to be able to disagree. You're going to disagree with your spouse. You're going to have disagreements throughout your lifespan with them. But it's how you have those disagreements, how you have those arguments, and how you recover from them is the very important part. And so that's what we're trying to teach. That's what we're trying to bring to the table. And like I said, filling some of these gaps that we saw. This whole program, Set Apart Farms, was forged in fire. It happened. It's what me and my family went through. When I came out of the military, I did 12 and a half years as an infantry Marine. And when I got out, I didn't think I had any type of issues at all. Right. I was like, I'm fine. I don't have weird dreams. I don't have sweats. I don't have, I don't think I'm having any issues. Well, it slowly creeped in over time.
Yeah.
After I got out, and I found myself in my life kind of in some disarray. Me and my family were looking at splitting, and the VA, I was kind of waiting on some surgeries. The VA finally got me in for some surgeries. They botched that surgery, which then threw my wife, threw her right immediately into the 100% caregiver role. And now this was a lady who was having to take care of me now. And this was somebody who wasn't necessarily very good to her at the time. Right. So now she's having to take care of somebody who she necessarily didn't really like. And thank God she did, because I don't know what would have happened if she didn't stick by my side and help us fight through this system and fight through the problems that we saw. But it saved our own marriage. It was our faith and just us really kind of putting our backs together and say, we're all we got. We got to figure this out. That's what really kind of helped us and pushed us along with this.
James, when you got out, the benefits and the help, and how do you find out, and what process do you go through to make sure that you're getting the things that are provided? I know you mentioned caregiver. And I wasn't in the military, didn't go through this, so I'm talking to you from somebody from the outside trying to figure it out. Do you think that people that are in the vets understand that they could get a caregiver? Can they even identify when they need that person? It seems like there's a disconnect as to what's offered, what's being taken advantage of, and realistically, they're isolated, which makes them homeless, suicidal, and in their own atmosphere and disconnected. So is there something that's done that people are missing? How did you figure out the caregiver, and what exactly was it like when you got out?
That's where the breakdown happens. The transition from the military to civilian sector is the 100% breakdown, as far as I see it. When I was getting out, I remember, there's mandatory classes you have to go to. I think it's like 3 days long. The biggest thing I got out of those 3 days was they kept trying to hire me to go be a lineman somewhere. Yeah. And that was literally the biggest thing I got out of it. They give you a couple of things, say, hey, here's some, in case you find yourself in a bad position one day, there's some organizations you can call and they'll help you. Right. And that's basically all you get on your way out.
That's what it sounds like. I didn't go through it. I don't think people, my side of things, know that understand that.
Yeah, there's not like
that they just drop you off and go, we're done with you. Here's a couple websites. Here's a couple phone numbers. Licking a promise. Good luck. See you later.
There's nothing guaranteed. There's nothing set up guaranteed. You don't leave with benefits. Like none of that. That's not how it works. So like whenever I left, 12 and a half years in, I did 5 combat deployments as an infantry Marine. And when I turned my papers in, they scraped my sticker off the windshield and said I had 30 minutes to be off the base. So it was like, thanks for playing. See you later. Yeah. And that's basically how it goes. Now, when I was leaving the military, I was already in need of surgeries. Like I was still, they could look at me and say, all right, you got jacked up and we never got this fixed. So the plan was though, when the naval doctor checked me over, he's like, listen, you got to get this fixed. And I said, I know that, but I don't want to do it here at Camp Lejeune because you're going to keep me, who knows how long extra you're going to keep me.
Yeah.
And so he was like, listen, just go check into the VA. You'll be taken care of. So that's what you think as a veteran when you're leaving. If I leave the military and I get into an issue, I just need to go check into the VA. Well, that's what I did. And when I checked into the VA and they did all the procedures they needed to, they were like, oh, you definitely need some surgeries. Unfortunately, we don't have the orthopedic surgeon to do it. So what they did was they said, we're going to put you on a list. And in the meantime, we'll do sports therapy once a week and we'll give you something for the pain. Well, that list lasted 4 years and 11 months for me. And so for 4 years and 11 months, I was getting, they were basically alternating me between hydrocodone and oxycodone on top of all the other medications they were putting me on throughout the term of those 4 years. So in that 4 years, I ended up going from, when I left the military, I wasn't on any medications that were a daily medication. It was something like I was getting spikes and migraines and headaches and things like that. So I would take that as it came on. But by the time the 4 years and 11 months, by the time I got my surgery, I was up to 13 different pharmaceuticals. And I believe 5 of those now have been recalled. So I was in a daze for 5 years. I wasn't really there. I wasn't a great husband. I wasn't a great father. I wasn't a great friend. So that's kind of the VA's push, right? It's pharmaceutical driven. Oh, you're having this problem. We're going to give you this. Oh, now you're having a stomach issue. We're going to give you this. It just kept, snowballing. And it wasn't until I had gotten the surgery, figured out, man, wow, they kind of paralyzed half my body here. What do I do? My wife started to really intervene quite a bit then and started to heal my gut. It was my gut health was the first thing she wanted to heal, right? Even though my biggest problem was the surgery that they had just botched, but I was having all these other issues. And so she was like, let's get your gut health under control. And then, you might start feeling a little better and be able to recover better. Once she did that, that was the game changer. From that point on, it was really a matter of what you put in your body, that food is medicine. And when I changed my diet and I changed how I was living and what I was putting in my body, I started to see things recover at the rapid rate, even brain function, which I was having a lot of issues with. A lot of people don't realize, but I had to go through speech therapy and vestibular therapy. I had to relearn to walk and talk back in 2012, just from the brain swelling that I'd had from some explosions. And so these things really started to recover once my gut health started to get fixed, once she got that under control. After that, it was mostly dealing with the surgeries. Now, here's the second thing is they tell you, you have all these veteran organizations you can reach out to when you start having problems. Well, me laid up in a bed for 18 months and I was the breadwinner, and my wife, we had a 2-year-old daughter at the time. So my wife was literally having to take me to all these appointments. Now, the VA's response to this botched surgery was I was doing anywhere from 11 to 13 appointments a week. So 6 days a week, I was a professional VA patient for 18 months. So what that did was I couldn't work, obviously. That's all I did. My wife had to help me get dressed, shower, things like that. She had to drive me because I couldn't look left, right, up or down. And I had no use of my right arm whatsoever. So driving was out of the question. So she couldn't go to work either because I was her job and our 2-year-old daughter. Mm-hmm. So we start reaching out to these veteran organizations and we tell them what happened. Hey, I walked into the VA on my own 2 feet. Now here's the situation. What do we do? We're about to be homeless. Well, if we called 10 organizations in a day, 8 of them automatically denied us because I didn't have a drug or alcohol addiction, which,
are you kidding me?
To me, that should be backwards, right? You think if you had an addiction, they'd say, let's get you clean and sober, and then we're going to get your family help. But that's where the money is. See, they get a lot of grant money, and that money's got to be spent a certain way. And so I thought, wow. And I literally had one organization tell me that if I just go put an illicit drug in my body and go test positive at the VA, they'll have services for me. And I was like, wow, y'all kind of back us into a corner a bit, don't you? If you're saying I have to go put an illicit drug in my body and then you're going to help me. That wasn't going to be, that wasn't an option. So if we called 10 organizations in a day and 8 told me no because of that, the 2 that said, yes, let's get something for you. Once we got into the details of like, all right, well, what do I do with my wife and 2-year-old daughter? Every time the answer was, well, we're going to get them enrolled in the city shelter. And I was like, that's not going to happen either. You're not going to put me up in here and go put my wife and kid down in some city shelter somewhere trying to figure out, what's going wrong.
Yeah.
So that wasn't going to happen. that's where we started to see gaps. We saw problems here. There was nothing that allowed that family to come in and say, wow, we're sorry that the VA did this. Let's try to get this, let's get this fixed.
Yeah.
So this all started up in Oregon. This is where I got the surgery, was Portland, Oregon. And then we were up in the Vancouver campus for a while in Washington. And we came back down here to the Houston area. I fell back on family because after, about 16 months, we were looking at living in our vehicle. We were like, what are we going to do? We sold everything. We sold couches. I mean, I remember selling.
That's with your daughter. No, it's with your son.
My daughter. Yeah. My youngest is my daughter. She's now 8, but she was 2 at the time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we would have people just come in and randomly look for things through the house, and they would buy it, like buy our silverware and clothes. It was the weirdest thing in the world, but we had to figure out how we're going to feed ourselves right now.
Right.
Wow.
And so that was a really weird experience, but we fell back to the Houston area. And then I had gotten my second and third surgeries there at the Houston VA, the corrective surgeries, which now I obviously have mobility in my head and my arm again. But now instead of us just saying, okay, we got through that, we got that fixed, let's get back to work, we're going back in to try to provide something that didn't exist for us. Because at the time, even though I thought in my mind, I was like, what's the chances of me going, as an infantry Marine, 5 combat deployments, I come back lucky enough with all my extremities just to have the VA do this.
Yeah.
It's very, very common. People started to hear about our story and started reaching out to us and saying, this is what happened to my husband, or this is what happened to my spouse. And it was along the same stories. Even while I was there at the Vancouver campus, at the VA, there was a lady that was across the hall from us, and her husband was a Vietnam veteran who came in on his own 2 feet, and they paralyzed him from the neck down. And they were just trying to send him home with her. And, she was all of 5'2", maybe 100 pounds. And he was, 6'3", 250 pounds. So she couldn't even got him out of the wheelchair into the car. And so we had to step in for her and get, congressional inquiries and get things like that going to help get their house adjusted for him to be able to now live somewhat a normal life. Again, walked in on his own feet, got a surgery, and now he's never going to be the same again. So it actually is happening quite a bit. And so we realized we got all these gaps. So back when this first happened in January of 2017, and we started reaching out to these organizations, and I started seeing these problems and these gaps, I remember I gave my wife 2 notebooks because she's got a serious research problem, right? She likes doing it, and she's really good at it. And so I gave her a green one and a red one, and I wrote green on good and bad on red. And I said, just document all of this. Like, do what you do on all this that we're going through right now. And if you fast forward to today, she has the same green notebook, and she's got 8 red ones. And so that's how we knew there was an issue. There was a problem here. It's like, goodness, that's a lot of bad and not that much of good. So those are the notebooks that we used when we built our business plan for Set Apart Farms, trying to fill these gaps. Now, the ways that we've been helping veterans up until now, it's been remote, right? It's been remotely helping them navigate the VA system, helping them navigate their benefits, helping them getting the resources that they need. Now we're at a point where we have to take it a step further. It's got to go to a point where we bring that family in to the farm, put them in their own house, and we start the treatment that way, where, like I said, the more 6 to 9 months long of really restoring and rebuilding that family foundation of that veteran family, and then getting them out there in society to be successful. And that's where we're at right now. So we've kind of worked it a little backwards. Most everybody would think, all right, well, you go find a plot of land and then let's start building on it. When we first got this idea and we had all these great things lined up, it was like February of 2020. So right when we were about to launch everything, COVID kicked off and we went stagnant, quick and in a hurry. And so one thing that I did do is I kept networking. I just kept working it. And so we've kind of worked it backwards, where we've locked on a lot of the development for the homes and the center and everything that needs to be on the farm. We just weren't too strategic with where are we going to put this property. It needs to have certain things. It needs to be near a VA. It needs to be, near certain stuff. And the other big part of what we want to do is it's utilizing the community. So one thing we noticed with some other veteran organizations was it's almost like a secret society. People know it exists, and they're like, they know, oh, they help veterans. But what do they do there? How do they help veterans? What do they? I mean, do you even know a lot of times the answer is no. So what we're going to do is really unite the community in with what we're doing. So really kind of, having open nights on the farm and being able to invite the community in, as well as community leaders. One of the things I noticed going through all the therapies that I went through over the years was when you get into a group therapy session, and this isn't just veterans, this is just guys or anybody. Vets tend to do it a little more, but guys in general love to up the other person's story. So when you get in a group and you get a guy that tells his sob life story about, oh man, you ought to hear what's going on with me. Then the next guy is like, oh, you think you got it bad? Check my story out. And by the time it gets around the whole room, it's just so negative that you're like, good grief, what are we all still doing here? Like, let's just light this whole thing up right now. So one thing I'm going to do, one thing I will do different is I'll bring in leaders from the community and bring in successful veterans from the community and place them in with that group therapy session. So not everybody's story is a negative story. We need to have positivity too. And those are just little bitty tweaks and things that we've noticed over, the years that we were dealing with all of these different organizations, and just seeing the gaps and the flaws and some stuff. So we're just trying to really create this. We definitely think this is we look at division in this country. Everybody talks about division, and we're all looking at it the wrong way. We're looking at it really big scale politically, right? How are we going to reunite this country? The division starts in our homes. That's where it starts. When we can reunite our homes, then we'll have united communities. And when we can reunite our communities, you'll have a united state, and then you'll have United States. So we have to start small scale, but looking at this big picture. One person is not going to fix this country. One organization is not going to fix this country. It's going to take a lot of us to do it. Right. And that's what I push a lot with veterans. I constantly am, what are you doing? What are you doing to be active? I hear a lot of people, there's a lot of prepping these days, a lot of preparation for things these days. And I'm all for preparation is fine. I believe in the 7 Ps, and I think preparing is good, but I'm also a Marine, and preparing is defense. And the only time we like to go on the defense is if we're reloading magazines. Yep. And so what we have to do is get on the offensive. That's what we need to do. We need to prevent instead of prepare for it. And why are we going to sit around and prepare for the worst thing to happen? Let's prevent it from happening. And the way you prevent it is being active. And so that's really kind of our big approach instead of part farms with these families is bringing that family together, getting them active, focused, and pushed out into the community to be a better part of the community that we need. That's what we need here in America.
Yeah, James, you know what I noticed going through your website is, everybody's about these pronouns, the he, she, they, me. The one thing I noticed, the pronoun that I liked, we. Throughout your page talking about what's happening, how to approach it, it was we, it was never James this, I this, it's throughout, it's we. So the messaging is there. I mean, it's prominent. By the time I got 3/4 of the way down, I'm like, yeah, this does make a whole lot of sense. So you mentioned on the website, the Fisher House. Is that like you were saying, where it doesn't include the rest of the family, it just include the vet itself? Because there were some good things that you said. There were some things that it lacked in the Fisher House.
Yeah, the Fisher House was it's an organization. It's a great organization. Excuse me. Ooh, I'm just coming over a sickness, and all of a sudden my throat got dry. So the Fisher House is a great organization that what it does is it offers a place to stay. Like, let's say you have a father who's a veteran and he's going through a surgery at a VA. And so you don't have to go pay for a hotel to stay in town to be with him while he's going through a surgery. They'll put you up there on the campus of the VA.
Gotcha. Yeah.
At the Fisher House. It's great for what it is. Now, the VA, once they botched my surgery and realized this is going really bad, they put us in the Fisher House, hoping it was only going to be a couple of weeks. We were there for 7 months.
Wow.
And it's not, it was good that we went through it because we got to learn really quick that you need your own space.
Yeah.
You need your own house. That's why on our farm, the families are going to get their own houses, right? So they have some separation from others. The the Fisher House is a community living thing. And the campus that we were at up in Vancouver, that's a huge campus for that region for cancer patients. And so 95% of the veterans that were coming through that campus there were dealing with cancer. Now, you don't want to be the family that's keeping the person up, in the hall next to you or the room next to you. Cause I mean, they're on their way out the door. You feel horrible for them. So what that did was it really narrowed us in our recovery. Me and my wife weren't able to work through anything or talk through anything. And we just had to be quiet all the time because there was people all around us dying. And so it was a way for us to really realize we cannot do a communal living sort of thing. These families need their space. And that was sort of part of the process with us once we started to do our marriage counseling together. Like I said, there's not a magic wand where you're never going to argue with your spouse again. And so some of those sessions that we went through, once we got home or later that evening, we had to work through those sessions. And sometimes it's not pretty. Sometimes it's another argument. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to do when you're in a communal environment because you don't want the people across the hall to hear your, argument, what y'all are going through, and you don't want to hear what they're going through. So that was really, like I said, the Fisher House was a good organization for what it does. It's a very short-term stay. It's nothing that's long-term by any means. And there was some there was some problems and things that we saw. That was our firsthand experience of seeing how there was mismanaging of things. And it was like, wow, I can't believe you'll do that. And so we just, like I said, documented everything and wanted to just make something that was better and create something that didn't exist for me and my family.
James, when you and I were on the phone, and I know it was earlier this year, it was like April, May sometime, when you and I were talking, we had Barry on the phone. We did a 3-way call. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did we not talk about because we were, at the time, I think there was some school shooting that took place. And I had mentioned to you about, it would be great, because Lou and I were talking about the shooting briefly on the podcast, I think a week or two before you and I spoke. Yeah. But I said, wouldn't it be great if we were able to take some of these vets that don't have a purpose, that are feeling left out, and put them in the schools and give them a responsibility here to protect these children. Just don't have to be armed, but they're doing their thing. Am I right? Didn't you and I talk about that back then? Can you explain that process and what stopped you?
We did. So I let me think. When I had first gotten back down here to Texas, it was, late 2017. And I think in 2018, early sometime, there was a school shooting in Alvin, Texas. And I put together a whole plan. I thought, wow, in that area, I would say 80% of the parents in that area, they work shift work because it's a lot of plants and things like that, chemical plants. And so I thought, man, some of these guys, they work, 15 days on, 14 days off. They have a lot of time off.
Yeah.
We could put something together here, a program that allows these parents to be able to go up to the school and at least mitigate situations. And we could take that even a step further and get these parents, the ones that are willing to do it, get them training and actually get them certified, guard certified in the state of Texas, for the ones that we're going to carry, that would open carry there or be able to carry there. And so I put this whole plan together, and I briefed a couple, really brought in some educators to help me, so I didn't get off track with it a little bit or was out in left field, because education is not my thing other than educating for security and things like that. So our big stopping point and the big obstacle to this, and I had some great educators that were in love with this idea, and plenty of people that were already raising their hands and ready to volunteer to do this. The thing that stopped it, which kind of shocked me, I wasn't ready for that one, was the teachers union is the one that shut that down. And that was because I think they were concerned with any type of funding that would have come out of the teacher or the education board. It would have, they were concerned with it not going to the teachers. And if any money was going to be spent, the teachers need to be making more money, which I understand why the union wants the teachers to make more money, then they make more money. But to sacrifice the security and safety of children for it is a little ridiculous. And so that was I got a real bad taste in my mouth after going through all the things I went through to try to help come up with the solution, especially at least in that area, in that Houston area. And then it just got shot down by something that was so ridiculous. I was like, all right, well, I guess y'all figure it out then.
Well, it got shot down by the first group that you would never thought would do that. I mean,
Right.
think about it. They're the
No,
ones.
yeah,
They're the ones who get out there on the camera, say, "Oh, we need to protect our kids," and then you come along with a way to protect the kids, and they go, "Oh, we don't want to do that." It's just total. It's totally backwards.
Well, it's not about the kids. It's
not about the kids.
It's about the
what they
unions
can
and
do,
about
what
the
they can
teachers.
get.
I saw a post the other day, just scrolling through stuff. Guy says the system's broken because his daughter got offered a teacher's position. He says the starting salary was $35,000 a year. She makes $50,000 right now as a bartender part-time.
Yeah.
That things are out of caliber. Their things aren't right. My response to him was, how's the pension? Because those same people that James was dealing with, they're not voting for the new person that doesn't exist that comes into that union like most unions. It's give it to the senior people so that we have a great retirement. And I got to tell you, in Pennsylvania, you put 30 years in, you get 3/4 of your pay and pension. 40 years in, you get your full salary for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
There's not too many places to do that.
Right.
And some of those teachers are making over $100,000, $120,000, $130,000. They're going to get that for the rest of their lives. That's a pretty good deal. And I know these teachers start off with nothing. It's because those people that walk in the door, like I'm saying with most unions, they can't say, hey, I don't accept the starting salary being so low, because the people that are voting already went through that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the price you pay to get to all the step ups, like most unions. So it's not like we're saying, oh, no, pay them nothing at the beginning. They're voting themselves out of that money to start, because the people that are voting are going, give it to me, give the bonus, give the extra.
Yeah.
This way. But in the end, I mean, that's a pretty good gig. You put 30 years in and get 3/4, or 40 years in and you get 100% of your pay. And that's a job that's hard to get fired from nowadays, which is another problem.
Oh, God, yes.
Right. That's the other thing. If you look, and you're starting somewhere new, and so you're going to work your way up. You have great benefits. What's the starting salary for a private in the military? I mean, it's probably way less than theirs, and I don't think they get summers off.
And I saw another post where somebody said, teachers have to spend their own money now on their. Another guy put a picture of his Mac toolbox and said, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. I mean, it depends on your profession. Not everything is pushed your way to go, here you go. It's unlimited. Whatever you want to spend, whatever you want to do. Class trips? Sure. I mean, you got to invest yourself into it. But it's pretty bad. When you and I were talking about that, I was like, you know what? How can people vent? I mean, those unions have to be really embarrassed and say, you know what, this has to be brought out to show them, you stopped us from trying to solve that issue. You know what I mean? If there was something else that said, oh, we don't want guns, we don't want this type of, they have to do a background check. There was something else that was in protection of the kid and said, your plan doesn't work. But to say that you're going to chew up our budget.
It was,
again,
it came down to
that's
a budget
me. That's the teacher saying, take care of me first. Those kids come second. And if that's how we're running our schools, that's a real problem.
Right.
And
I was at the time, I mean, a budget was going to be the thing. I said, listen, we can get a lot of this. And I had a security company that was willing to donate quite a bit of the material and things that we could have utilized. And so it was like, you're not going to have to pay for all of this if you just let us do the legwork on it, but we need to get it approved. And they were just way too concerned and thought too much money was going to get rolled into it. It's like, wow, okay. It's unfortunate.
It is, and it's really unfortunate. But the thing is if you were to get that going, just by virtue of the contacts that you generated from networking, you could probably generate enough money where you could pay those guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it would not cost the school no extra taxes. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people who are thinking exactly what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And it would be easy. They don't want to do it because but also it's also political. The first time there's a gun in a school, all the news stations have it. You know what I mean? And they're just using it for something totally different than just news. and it's
Right.
really screwed up. Yeah,
Absolutely.
crazy, man.
I had a buddy of mine who adopted a kid, and you could tell that the boy was troubled from genetics or whatever happened when they were really young. So the kid needed to find his own way. He takes a toy gun to school for whatever reason. The teachers, of course, freak out. They started telling all the parents that a kid brought a gun to school. Never told them it was a toy gun. It was a plastic toy gun. It wasn't even a BB gun.
Yeah.
And of course, the rumors get out, it's his kid. So not only was at this point the kid adopted and troubled and not finding his way, but they were making it even worse by saying to this, the whole community,
right?
He had that's the guy that brought the gun to the school. But he was beside himself trying to figure out why the hell would they do this. I'm like, that's because it's politics. It really is to throw that out there. And I know there's an issue with shootings, and I don't want to downplay that at all. But it's sometimes you just wonder what people are thinking, and sometimes it doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah,
but and realistically, nothing has changed. In the past 9 months, 10 months, 10 years,
those
things have still gone on. Everything's still the same because they haven't looked at it from your point of view of protecting that school.
And the fact we had so many parents and the parents of that school district too that were willing to say, yeah, on my days off, I'll be there.
Yeah.
You don't even need to pay me. And I said, we can get you certified. Like, you don't even have to pay for the certification. We can cover that. And literally, have them be a card carrying security guard for the state of Texas. And they would have been fine up there, at least try to mitigate something.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Yeah, they didn't want any of that. They didn't want that. It was weird. It was almost like more parents at the school. No. Let's keep the parents away from the school. It's kind of that vibe.
Yeah.
It's a totally weird thinking. James, my thing is your wife listening to your story has to be a saint. Seriously, to stick through this, because it seems like there's a lot of pressure on a family. Second, your daughter to watch this happen and all the trauma that goes on in a short period of time has to be gut wrenching to see this and try to work through it. You seem like you're well-rounded. You seem like you got things figured out. You speak well. It's hard to believe that reading the story online that you're pretty a half step away from being homeless and then bounced out.
Yeah. Oh, we were definitely homeless. I mean, I'll say we had nothing at one point. We said, what are we going to do? Staying at the Fisher house for those few months. Once our time was done there, which, they were like, you got to go. We were like, where do we go? And they were like, we don't, I don't care. But you got to go. Yeah. And so it was lucky enough that I had family down here to fall back on and, get back on our feet and try to figure this out. But, that's the thing is there's so many, like right now we're helping a family in Arkansas right now. There's a veteran family in Arkansas. And here's the thing that really gets to me. So this family, is currently right now, somebody loaned them a really small trailer to stay in on a piece of property. This property's got no water, no electricity, nothing. It's a veteran, his spouse, and their 2 kids. They're having to literally use a Lowe's bucket as a toilet right now. Now we have terrorists in Gitmo that get better. They have better, day-to-day living situations than that family in Arkansas does right now. And that's unsat. That's the stuff that keeps me fired up and fueled up.
We also sent $100 billion to the Ukraine to fight their war. So, and you got guys that are homeless and trying to figure things out here, and kids that wake up with no breakfast or lunch. So, we're doing good.
I remember going backwards a little bit in the conversation when you were talking about, when you get out and it's really hard. There's no support. I remember I was probably like 13, 14 years old going to JFK and Vietnam was winding down. I remember seeing these guys they look like they just came out of the field at JFK. Because, you know, back then you could go down all the way down to the gate to meet your people. These guys are standing there with weapons, everything. Like they literally plucked them out of the bush, put them at JFK. This is not new where there's no support when you get ready to get out or your time is up. This has been going on for a long time.
Right.
And
yeah.
There's a culture in the military where you get hurt, they tell you suck it up. Don't be a pussy, suck it up. You don't need to go to medical. You know, that's just the way that's the way they are, and that's the way the whole thing operates.
Right.
And I'm sure it's not much different today because I've been out of it for a while, but I'm sure it's not much different.
No. Nothing's changed. It's the same way. And the transition really that's the breakdown, is the transition from the military. You don't, and so that's the thing too. A lot of veterans, they don't realize. So some of these kids, you know, they're going in at 17, coming out at 21 or 18, coming out at 21, 22 years old. Now, what'll happen is, let's say they go regular 4 years in the Marine Corps and they did 2 combat deployments, got out. Navy's going to look at that and say, okay, you did 2 combat deployments. We're going to list you. You're going to have 30% PTSD, even though never evaluated them or anything. And they're like, I got PTSD. Well, yeah, because of where you've been, we're going to label you as this. Well, some of these guys, when they get out, they go and the first time they get frustrated at work or get into an argument with somebody or fly off the handle, they go right to, oh, that must be my PTSD. And it's like you're living up to a label that was given to you out of the military. And a lot of times it's you know, what PTSD is not being able to separate the memory with the emotion. So anytime something reminds you of that traumatic experience, you have an emotional response to it, right? You can't help but to. You have to, you know, so it's something, talking about it, you have an emotional response. Something reminds you of it, you have an emotional response. And what I'll do is I'll interview these veterans, and it's not like an interview. It's just we're chatting, we're talking. And after about an hour, we start getting comfortable with each other. And we start going down other roads, you know, talking about certain things. I'll start talking about combat. I'll tell a couple combat stories, maybe a good one, a funny one, and then maybe a tragic one. And I'm trying to lure them in to tell me one.
Yeah.
And what I do is when they start talking about their experiences in combat, I'm watching their body. I'm watching their emotions. I'm seeing how are they reacting. And sometimes with some of them, like I'm fine. I can tell stories all day about combat and things that I saw, and I'm not going to break down in sweats. I'm not going to have bad dreams at night. So what I was noticing is a lot of it is an adjustment disorder. So there is PTSD, a PTSD part of it, but a lot of it, you got to realize you got all these veterans, you got these military men and women that are running and gunning with America's top 10, right? And then we bring them back home and we got them selling extended auto warranties.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not matching up, right? I mean, it's not, you know, it's two different things. And so a lot of it is an adjustment disorder, and it's just getting them adjusted just right, you know, and letting them see their path. And again, with your family, like that's your unit. The same thing you did in the military for your subordinates, same thing you did for your Marines or airmen or seamen or your soldiers, is you guided them, you mentored them, you protected them. That's the same thing you do for your family. So your unit in the military was just a practice unit for your actual unit, your family. And getting that mindset into these veterans is really important, and getting them away and out from underneath that big umbrella of PTSD, because that's what naval medicine has done to PTSD. Is it's like autism. There's 1,000 different spectrums. So PTSD is the same way, and they'll just label you, oh, you have PTSD for this. Well, hold on, you know, let's get to the bottom of it. You got to also realize a lot, and then I'm not going to just throw numbers out like 85%, because I don't know the actual numbers, but it's a lot of military people show up to the military with trauma already. That's already been established. The trauma is already there. And the reason they're going to the military is because they're running from poverty or abuse or something. Okay. So what the military does is just amplify it. And so when everybody gets out, it's real easy to just blame the big PTSD weight on my back and say, well, this is from combat. This was from the military. No, let's get to the root of it. Let's get to the real root of what caused trauma in your life, and then how the military, you know, amplified it. And go ahead.
Good. Well, see, see, something that might fit with this. I tell people all the time, when you go into military, your normal is different than the civilian world. And that falls into what you're saying, because you've seen things that you were never taught. You've done things that you learned while you were in. Your normal becomes totally, and I mean, it's everything. You know it. Your sense of humor, the way you carry yourself, everything is totally different. And when you walk out, you're like, okay, what's wrong with you people? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
no, absolutely. It'd be like you going from being a cast member on Saturday Night Live to like getting a job at Applebee's. Nobody would get your humor. They'd be like, "That's inappropriate here."
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's what it's like. Yeah. It's an adjustment for sure. But see, and that's where the transition part should take place. The military should be helping you adjust. You're going to be in an adjustment phase, and there is no adjustment phase. You go from, like I said, running and gunning with America's top 10 to being back here trying to sell extended auto warranties. And it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it ain't. And you got to find what makes you happy. You have to find happiness in your family. You have to involve your family. So you were making a comment about when you were young and seeing, like, Vietnam was ending and you see these veterans coming back. We didn't have nothing for them. And what did they have to do? They had to set up their own stuff. They had to set up VFWs and American Legions, and they set up motorcycle clubs, and they were looking for their own. And I get that. A lot of people don't realize with me, when I got out of the military, I found myself in a 1% motorcycle club. And that was a lot of strain. A lot of problems with me and my family was we were falling apart. It's being in a 1% motorcycle club is not a good life to live with a 2-year-old daughter and a wife. But I understood it, and because it made sense to me. So I'll give you an example. If there was 6 of us that were running in through SoCal and we had to pull over on our bikes to get gas, 3 guys were getting gas and other 3 guys were on security.
Yeah.
It was like, and then you switched. It was like being on patrol again. It was normal. Everything seemed normal. This was a normal way to live because I had just been doing it for so many years in combat. I had an enemy, and this is the things that we did. Now, if I go to Target with my wife and daughter, I'm sweating bullets, right? I can't function properly. But going down the road any moment, could get shot at, or going into a bad situation with these guys I was running around with, that all seemed normal to me. And that was because I didn't adjust. I needed an adjustment to go from doing what I was doing to going, working as an operations manager at FedEx. It was like I was living a lie. It was like I was like a secret agent or something. It is like, what am I doing here? Showing up to this 9-to-5 job every day. And it didn't click until later. I had to hit rock bottom, and I had to almost lose my family and lose my life for me to realize, wow, look at what I almost lost. I almost lost my unit. I almost completely abandoned my unit and lost them. And that's what we have to get. We got to reach and get that message out to America. We got to rebuild these families. That's what's going to make this country better again. Like I said, it's not one person. It's not one organization. It's going to be a lot of us coming together and being active and actually doing things that are going to help prevent bad times, right? We don't need to prepare for them. Let's prevent them.
And you know this, and you touched on it earlier. The spouse picks up a lot of slack when you're a soup sandwich. You know what I mean? They pick up a lot of slack. My wife was in the military also. And
okay.
It's funny because when we talk, I'll always say, well, the Navy you were in was way different than the Navy I was in. Even though we were in at the same time, they were not the same thing.
Right,
but,
right.
She still had, I was still in after we got married and all that, and she was out, and she was, she dealt with 4 deployments, I think it was. And you're gone, and they're left to fend for themselves. It's they put up with a lot, man.
And we see that. So we see, and even though there's resentment that builds up with that. Right, the one spouse having to play double role, and they, even if they don't want it to, right, even if they're doing their part, they're just doing this. There's still some resentment that builds up, and we saw this play out. I got invited to this organization, and what they do. I was doing a lot of the group sessions with them, But what they do is once a week on like Tuesdays, they will have a family day. And so what they were allowing is the families of these veterans that were staying here at this facility, they could show up and they would have a big meal, right? A big dinner. And then at the end of that dinner, the families would leave and the veterans would go break off into squads and they would go have like powwows, group sessions around some fire pits. One thing I saw was when it was time for the fam to leave, the kids were screaming and crying. Yeah. They didn't want to leave dad. The wife had this look on her face like, no, it's fine. You go over and hang out with your boys around the fireplace and I'm going to go home pulling double duty again. That resentment was there. And now a lot of those guys, they went through that whole program and in 6 months, they might've been leaving the program thinking sober, but they didn't have a family to go home to. And to me, that's not success. That's failure.
Yeah, it is. I understand exactly what you're saying. It is failure. That is. Yeah.
And that was, again, we had to see it. We had to go through all these different procedures and we just had our eyes and ears open the whole time, trying to take everything in and saying, how are we falling short on it? Like, how are these systems? Like, everybody just assumes there's veteran organizations out there that are just going to help you. They don't understand. A lot of them aren't cutting the mustard at all. We talked earlier about my transition from the military. One of the organizations was there. I remember them specifically, and this is why, it's because of this story. They were there when I was leaving the military, and they were one of the ones that said, if you find yourself in a situation, financial or anything, you call us and we'll help you. And so what they do is you're supposed to sign up with them at that point then, right? And so I'm sure I'm going to put my name on the list just in case I need your help down the road. Right. So what they have now is they have your phone number, they have your name, they have your email, and they waited I'd say about 3 months after I got out, when I was out, and they'd sent me an email and said, hope your transition is going great out of the military. Thank you for your service. We'd like to send you 2 gas cards up to $100. Would you be interested in them? Nobody's going to say no to $100 in free fuel, right? So yes, that would be amazing. Thank you. Boom, shot them right out, got the gas cards. That's great. Well, one thing you don't realize is that organization's policy was they can help a veteran one time and one time only.
Are you kidding?
And what they did was they just trapped you because you just took those gas cards. So if you call back with an issue, your social comes up with, they already helped you. They gave you $100 in gas cards. So boom, you're
kidding me.
You're an easy check off the list. You're $100, no problem, off the list now. See, people don't realize this goes on throughout this community, and it's garbage. It really is garbage. Set Apart Farms. So we formed in 2019, late 2019. We got tax approved in February of 2020, and thus far, nobody's taken a paycheck from Set Apart Farms. The money that gets donated, it's for these families. It doesn't go. We don't take any money. We don't take a paycheck. That's one of the things we saw was the mismanagement of funds and things. You have an organization in Houston, their top 4 of that organization, they all drive $90,000 Ford Raptors with their logos blasted all over it. And they call that marketing. I can house 2 families for a year on $90,000. That's insane. That's crazy that you drive that truck. But right now we talk about restoration. I drive a 1993 Dodge D250. Got a 5.9 liter engine in that thing that it's never going to quit on me. And I actually have it towed in part in the garage right now. I got to pull the engine on it. I had a bit of a fuel leak coming off the V pump. And once I got digging on that thing, I realized that every one of my gaskets on that engine is original from 1993. And they're basically like dry cork. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that engine and I'm going to put new gaskets on everything on that thing. Yeah. But that truck there, it'll last me. I don't need to go get a $90,000 Ford Raptor.
Right.
I can get another $800,000 out of that truck. No problem. And so those are the issues we saw. We just started to realize and see these gaps and these problems and said, wow, it's all a lot of it's a facade. Now there's some great organizations out there. Don't get me wrong. And we want to partner with those organizations, right? We want as the tide rises and, all the other boats do too. So we vet these other organizations. And again, there's also no reason for us to reinvent the wheel. So if there's an organization that's out there that's collecting money, saying that, we do horse therapy. well, we don't need to do horse therapy. If you're already a good organization that's doing it, let us team up and let us utilize your services and let us promote you as well to say, this is what you're doing. Because that was another thing, like with the family in Arkansas. So we could just completely steamroll them and help them and say, let's do this for you. But what does that do for all the other organizations that are out there in their area that aren't helping them? You know, so what we'll do is we'll reach out and we'll research the organizations that are in their area, that are maybe in the state of Arkansas or in their specific area. And we'll call those organizations and say, we have a family that's in this need right here. Here's the problem. Now you claim that you assist on this, 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 and this.
Yep.
So we need your assistance on this. And 9.5 times out of 10, we don't get anything from them. But we have to hold their feet to the fire. We're going to make these organizations. If you're collecting all this money under the guise of helping veterans, then you better be helping veterans. You can't be like, you know, like the one there in Arkansas right now, the Habitat for Humanity, who they shut their application process down in like June. So it's like, wow, you're open half a year. You collect donations for 12 months, but you only take applications for half of them. Yeah, that stuff's it's just shady. And so what we do is we call them and we try to hold their feet to the fire and say, this is what you say you do, so do it. And then if they can't do it, that's when we then step in and say, we're going to do it. Obviously, we're not going to tell any veteran no. One thing people don't realize right now, the number one demographic of veterans, of homelessness and veterans, is actually single mothers. It's female veterans that are not married. And the reason is they just lost everything. The only thing they got left are their kids. And when they turn to the VA and say, hey, look, I'm home. What are we going to do? I'm homeless with my kids. The VA, the first thing they want you to do is you have to get a certified letter. And you got to write a letter, a certified statement saying you're homeless with your children. Then they get the state involved. Well, as soon as the veteran hears that, they're like, oh, no, I'm not, I don't trust CPS or the state. So no. So what they do is they keep their mouth shut and they go live in a van or they go live in a tent. And it's sad. It's completely ridiculous. And so with our program, we're helping families. Well, even though that's a family, a mother with her kids, even though there's no father in that, that's still a family. We're still going to help them. We partnered with a great organization outside of Houston, Katie Cares. And that's what they were doing, was they are helping single mothers get back on their feet. So we had partnered with them and said, hey, what are you doing? Like, would you be interested in setting up just a specific veteran demographic where these women are veterans, they have kids, they're struggling. Here's the situation. When I told them about that being the number one, like, growing demographic in veteran homelessness, they were just blown away. They were like, oh my God.
I would have never thought that.
Right. Well, it's because of that. Like I said, they've obviously just lost everything. And the only thing they have left is their kids, and they don't want to lose them either. So they're just going to keep their mouth shut.
James, you explained this well before we go, because we're over now by 8 minutes. But to clarify, you're a nonprofit. I don't want people thinking, I mean, you made that clear, but I just want to make sure that people understand that. 2, there's a button on your website to be able to donate. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah.
And how they can follow through with it.
So we have a website, setapartfarms.org, setapartfarms.org. And there is multiple ways to get involved, not just your donation, which your donations are obviously they're going to help these families. But see, we need people in the community too. So physical therapists, massage therapists, if you have skills, you know, dentists, we're making great networks with dentists out in town, because that's going to be a big part of what we do is, yes, we're holding the VA accountable and holding their feet to the fire to give the benefits that these families deserve. But in the meantime, we can't sit there and wait. You know, the VA operates in like 3 months, 6 month segments. We can't wait that long. So we have to get these families community care. So even if you're, you know, out in the community, we can utilize you. I promise you. And again, with these families, like the family I'm trying to help in Arkansas right now, even just a generator right now would change their world upside down, because they would actually have heat in their trailer, just with the generator. So there's certain items and things. It's not just money, but you can get on our website at setapartfarms.org, and I believe it says to donate or to get involved. And then there's multiple ways to get involved. Volunteers, we love our volunteers. We're volunteers. So please join us with this fight. And it's just going to take guys like you that are willing to listen and hear these issues and know, all right, well, this is kind of a common sense approach to this. Why aren't we healing the whole family? Why are we leaving the most important ingredient out? It doesn't make much sense, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
James, I appreciate you coming on. We could probably talk another hour about this and try to figure it out, but we ran over and we're out of time. And
well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Likes to get home.
Well, thank you so much. It's going to take guys like you to just get the word out and get us exposure out there to let them know we do have a better way of dealing with this, and we're tackling it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, man. Good on, man. That's
thanks, James. Appreciate you.
Thanks, James. Yeah, that is. I had no idea that women veterans were the fastest growing demographic. I did not know that. That is crazy.
No,
I did know that a lot of guys, when they get out, especially during conflict, they go to 1% clubs.
Yeah. Ray did.
I did know that. But
it's understandable, just like he's saying. It's not. It may not be healthy, but you're with your, people to think alike.
It's normal. It's like he was saying, like you're on patrol while the others are getting fuel.
Yeah.
You
pick up where you left off.
Yeah, perfectly normal.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying at the beginning. The price, they continue to pay it. It isn't like, I'm home, I'm back to normal, I'm out. I'm done serving. You're not done serving. You're going to serve the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's actually a shame. But yeah, it's good that we had him on.
Oh, I agree. We need to have him back in about like next year.
Yeah, keep us in the loop. Yeah.
Yeah.
He just chimed in there. He's on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Next week, Ray.
Yep, next week, Ray Everingham. He is, for you guys who don't follow NASCAR, 3 for Dale. You got to throw that in whenever you say NASCAR, 3 for Dale. He was Jeff Gordon's crew chief. Won a couple championships. He's done some TV. He's got some stuff. Matter of fact, when we get done, I'm gonna text this guy, get him, tell him that next week they're on deck, send pictures, give him email addresses and all that, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. Yep.
Sounds good.
Yeah. We'll make this happen. And then we go on vacation. Did we take our break then?
Take a break, and I think we're coming back sometime late February. So next week will be our last December 7th until probably February. We got a meeting on the 6th to talk about what we're going to do for next quarter.
Yeah.
With guests, sponsors, content, how to improve the show, all that usual stuff. And you guys need to get a hold of us. 3 Lefts Don't.
Yeah.
At Gmail. You want to sponsor the show, reach out. We check that every once in a while, not every day, but often. Yeah. We also, too, probably have to throw in a viewers' rides where we have the viewer back on for.
We need to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that usually turns out pretty good. So guys get to showcase their stuff and tell us what's happening.
Yep. We can do that.
So it's all good.
I like where you go. I like where your head's at on that.
Money's on the dresser.
All right, man. Later. All right. What can I say? James and his family are doing phenomenal work, and we don't need we just don't need veterans hitting rock bottom like he did, or worse, doing something like committing suicide, because it doesn't help anybody. So everybody, think about those vets that are out there. Do what you can to help. Set Apart Farms, they're doing some really good stuff. It's well worth it. Check them out. Until next week, keep it between the lanes. Later.